In 1960, John F. Kennedy, Senator of Massachusetts, was elected President of the United States. The youngest and also first Catholic president, Kennedy was regarded by the American people as a strong, capable leader with exceptional diplomatic finesse. Through his short-lived presidency, John F. Kennedy founded the Peace Corps and led the American nation into the space age. However, the defining moment of his presidency was his success in defusing the Cuban Missile Crisis. After failed attempts by the United States to overthrow the Cuban government, such as through the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, the governments of the Soviet Union and Cuba conspired to build ballistic nuclear missile bases in Cuba with the capacity to attack most of the United States. Though initially going undetected, this conspiracy was eventually discovered by the American government with the use of Air Force U-2 spy planes.
Following a televised public address on October 22, 1962, the Council of Organization of American States held a vote that resulted in the unanimous decision to authorize armed force to prevent the shipment of arms to Cuba. Fearing the outbreak of a potential thermonuclear war, the USSR and United States reached a compromise. If the Americans removed their pre-existing nuclear missile bases from Turkey and Italy, Soviet President Khrushchev would dismantle the Cuban bases as well. Following a further pledge by the U.S. not to invade Cuba, the blockade was lifted and the crisis effectively had ended.
Now consider, what if, in the election of 1960, President Kennedy had lost to Republican candidate Richard Nixon? The fatal flaw in Nixon's campaign strategy was that he attempted to campaign in all 50 states, rather than focus on the swing states that carried the most electoral votes. What if Nixon had changed his strategy in 1960 and won the election? Would he have handled the Cuban Missile Crisis with the same success as Kennedy? What if his negotiations resulted in the outbreak of nuclear war? With that in mind, we journey back 50 years, and we take a look at the potential future of the world.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Here we explore just one possibility had Richard Nixon been elected 34th President of the United States. October 1962. Russian missiles are discovered on Cuba, capable of striking every major city in the United States. The world would watch as Presidents Nixon and Khrushchev stood eye to eye, a compromise the only option lest the world descend into war. The compromise would come to the table, the United States to remove her missiles from Turkey and Italy in return for the dismantling of Soviet bases and missiles on Cuba. And Nixon, standing firm in the belief that maintaining nuclear deterrence was necessary, would refuse. The opening salvo would come as the U.S. fleet sank the Russian ships carrying missiles to Cuba. War would be declared. Following Russia's declaration of war, the world would descend into chaos. Battle lines had long been drawn, NATO versus the members of the Warsaw Pact. Neither side would be willing to launch the first tactical nuclear strike, for both sides knew the cost of such an act. The continent of Europe would then be plunged into a conventional war of untold ferocity. Thus, we come to the first and most important battle of what would be a long, bitter war, the battle for the Fulda Pass. The Fulda Pass would be the most crucial location of the coming war. The pass, located between Frankfurt and Kassel, Germany, was the only route through which Soviet armed forces would be able to cross the Iron Curtain into Europe. The United States and NATO, well aware of the strategic importance of the pass, stationed one of the largest contingents in the history of modern warfare within the pass. Each and every U.S. soldier was equipped with common training and a single doctrine: at all costs, hold the pass. The following is our depiction of the events that occurred during the battle. battle for the pass rages on for days. Thousands of casualties ensue throughout the battle, on both sides. The battle was won by the United States and Allies, with the elimination of Soviet Tactical Command personnel in charge of the invasion.
America!
With the pass secure, the war shifted to Russian soil. The Allies pushed forward to the capital city of Moscow. The Soviets, in desperation, made a fatal decision that would throw the world into absolute chaos. Seeing no other options, they would launch the first tactical nuclear strike of the war. Since the missiles in Cuba had never been removed, the strike would originate from there, pointing at the United States capital, Washington, D.C. The U.S. and her allies would respond in kind, and both Europe and America, devastated by the effects of the nuclear explosions, would literally be engulfed in fire. The results would be catastrophic. The few who survived this Armageddon would succumb to the effects of a nuclear winter. The ecological damage done by the massive amounts of both radiation and explosive debris would result in colossal atmospheric damage and a cloud of destruction to block out the sun. As a result, the world plummets into another ice age, the nuclear winter. The radiation and freezing cold would combine to eliminate nearly all living things on the planet. It would truly be a war to end all wars.